The Honda Civic Type R is undoubtedly one of the best driver's cars ever made. Today, I have the EK9, the very first Civic Type R, and the current generation FL5. 25 years apart, but they still share the same DNA. In today's video, we're going to compare them head to head and talk about why this might be the end of the Type R as we know it, while celebrating everything that we love about driving. My name's Pat, and welcome to 2PJZ. But before we get to where we are today, obviously we have to start at the top. This is the first ever Honda to wear the famous red Type R badge, the EK9 Civic.
In 1997, Honda didn't just launch a new Civic model, they introduced a new way of thinking, a red badge that would come to define a generation of drivers. The EK9 Civic Type R was the first of its kind. It wasn't just a trim level or a styling pack, but instead, the EK9 is a race-inspired, lightweight, high-revving weapon, which is engineered with the same obsession that built Honda's Formula One engines and powered the Integra Type R. It had no sound deadening, no creature comforts, no automatic option, just a hand-assembled 1.6-litre B16B VTEC engine that revved to 8,400 RPM. The EK9 also had a seam-welded chassis, a helical LSD, and suspension geometry so sharp that it felt like the car is hardwired to your brain. This was Honda at full tilt, chasing perfection through balance, feel, and lightness, not simply just brute force. Built only for Japan, the EK9 wasn't meant to be a global icon, but it became one anyway. It set the template for every Civic Type R that followed, for the entire hot hatch segment, and for drivers like us who believe cars should make you feel something.
And something as well that you might notice on the back window is that this isn't just any ordinary EK9. If you know your Hondas, this will mean something to you. This is one of the original Spoon demo cars, and if you're not sure what that means, let's pop the bonnet and talk about it. Now, this isn't a specific feature on this Spoon car. I will be doing that separately. But a few things that I do want to touch on, because we need to talk about the performance anyway, is that this came equipped with a 1.6-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder motor called the B16B. And then Spoon, arguably the most famous Honda tuner ever, took this and stroked it out to 1.8.
Spoon didn't chase big power with this build, instead they chased precision. The lightweight flywheel slashes rotational mass from around 15 pounds down to roughly 9 pounds. It sharpens throttle response and revving authenticity. Spoon also stiffened the chassis through upgraded engine and transmission mounts, which boosted the effective spring rate dramatically and made the car feel far more connected. And while we're talking about the suspension side, they also fitted sport dampers, backed by Showa internals and upgraded bushings, tightening body control and turning it in with surgical precision. Spoon also engineered close ratio gearbox kits for the EK9, which are race car gear sets that trade relaxed cruising ratios for sharper acceleration and rev hopping shifts. This car also has a Spoon ECU and a 421 header setup, which sounds absolutely awesome, and it's just straight through exhaust, so you hear all the revs.
And not only that, they increased the 8,400 RPM redline to 11,000, allegedly giving this car a power boost from around 185 horsepower to 260, which is bonkers considering this is an NA car.
All the fancy tech talk aside though, we want to see how this car feels behind the wheel. So let's go for a drive.
Oh! First time ever driving an EK9 Type R, and I am driving none other than the Spoon demo car. What a moment! The first thing you notice about driving this car is that it is so raw. Like, obviously it's going to be raw with all the ITBs, the more aggressive cams, the exhaust, the carbon bonnet, so there's all intake noise just coming through. This is just pure sound. And the first thing that I really noticed about this car is that besides your steering inputs and that beautiful 5-speed gearbox that just makes you want to downshift even if you don't particularly have to, there isn't that much. It's just you and the road and just that feeling that we got addicted to cars from in the first place. Now I can't go too crazy because we are on some pretty busy roads out here, but wow. I'm just taking this all in right now because I'm driving a genuine piece of Japanese tuning history. Like, this is not just any Honda Civic. This is the EK9. The Honda. Spoon are the guys, the people that are the reason that I love Hondas, and the reason that maybe many of you love Hondas, and potentially a reason that you might have clicked on this video. It feels like I'm in Gran Turismo. Like, I've been in this car on Gran Turismo, now I'm in it in real life. Like, goddamn. There's no assists in this car, there's no filters, there's nothing getting in the way of you and the driving experience. It's just you and the road. And that's one thing that the FL5 Civic carries really well, is that direct driving feeling. A lot of modern cars now, they take away a lot of what made you fall in love with cars in the first place because there's so many rules. But the EK9 and the FL5 arguably, that being the last of its kind as we know it, and this being the first, setting everything in motion for what we know about just the pure love of naturally aspirated driving. This is where it really came to life. And I don't mean to discredit the EG platform, because the EG Civic platform and even the ED Civic platform is amazing. But for many people, the EK9 was really the first. And yes, it's the first Type R. It's the first car that was built with this philosophy of racing and spirited driving in mind. And I honestly feel honored to have this experience right now. I really, really do. All right. Bloody hell. Produced from 1997 to 2000, brand new, an EK9 would cost you around 2.2 million yen, which, if my calculations are correct, is around 25,000 Australian dollars at the time. This car was designed and built in an era where driving was the top priority. There's no traction control, there's no radio in the car, there's not much by the way of electronic aids like you will see in the FL5. Now, getting back in this after the EK9, three things that I immediately noticed that gave me the same smile in the EK9 as this car. One of them is the steering. Even though this steering isn't as light as the EK9, it's still very much a direct steering feel. The gearbox feels almost the same, that same snappiness of the throws and just enjoyment every time you shift. And just the overall sense of the cockpit, yes, it feels like a passenger car. That's the point of the Civic. It is a normal car. It doesn't feel like a race car in here per se, but when you put your foot down, it's like this mask gets ripped off and it becomes a whole different animal. The FL5 is faster, more stable, it's more composed, it's less mechanical, less raw, less bitey, but yes, it still feels like it has that Type R DNA. It's still a Civic Type R.
Yes, it's turbocharged. Yes, it has adaptive suspension and rev matching and dual axis struts to keep torque steer in check, but honestly, none of that dulls the connection. It only just elevates it.
What I'm about to say next might sound like a bit of an oxymoron, but I do think this is the single best front-wheel drive modern hot hatch that you can buy brand new. However, it may not be the most exciting, and excitement comes at a very high priority point for me when I'm looking at a hot hatch. The EK9, that was an extremely exciting car. There's no assist, there's nothing really to help you. Like, yes, it does have ABS, but there's no traction, there's none of the modern fanciness that you get. It's just you, the road, all the noise, all the feeling.
I lived with this car for 6 weeks and I featured that separately last week, but this car isn't just about nostalgia. What I noticed in the time that I had it is that it's all about evolution. The FL5 is faster, more capable, but somehow still manages to echo the same Honda DNA that made the EK9 such a purest dream. What's wild is how similar the spirit is between these two. The Spoon EK9 is all about feel, quick responses, minimal weight, and confidence through simplicity. The FL5 achieves a similar effect, but with the benefit of 2 decades of engineering. The sensation is still there, the sense that you're in something built by people who care about driving. If the EK9 was Honda's raw vision, the FL5 is the refined letter to the same audience, signed off with the exact same red ink.
Now, one of the things that Honda did best with the FL5 platform, in my opinion, is the LSD. A lot of people over the past 6 weeks that I've had this car told me that they would probably buy one if it wasn't front wheel drive, which as a Honda fan makes me just scratch my head, because that's the whole point of why we love Hondas. But this car particularly, when you point it into a corner and you put your foot down and it comes out the other side, that's why I love front wheel drive cars. That's why I want to buy a Honda Integra DC2 Type R later this year. And then a lot of people don't get it, and I just don't think they've driven a good front wheel drive car. And I'm very lucky today that I've driven 2 of the best. In stock trim, the EK9 is around 380 kilos lighter, but that's even before Spoon got their hands on it. When you look at the FL5, that has 40% more weight, but 50% more power. However, it is a much bigger car. Gone are the days of the Civic hatchback. In the EK9, you do everything. But in the FL5, it does some of it for you. However, it does it brilliantly. In my experience over the past 6 weeks living with the FL5, it truly feels like a capable track car that in-street trim, when you have it in comfort mode, feels like any other Civic daily. Whereas the EK9 is a true 90s street racer with motorsport soul. Ultimately, the thing that I love the most about the Civic Type R is that it's always punched above its weight. Whether it's the first or the current, they are both absolutely amazing. And these cars were truly built with the purpose of putting a smile on your face. And whether it's from the streets of Japan to the Nürburgring, it just does it all. If this is the final Civic Type R in its current petrol form as we know it, I honestly think this is the ultimate swan song. And being able to have both back to back really shows you how far we've come in the last 25 years. I'd love to know what you think of the Civic Type R in the comments below. And if you had the choice, would you pick the original, the current, or would you have both? Would you daily drive this and then take this out on Sundays? If you love Hondas, make sure you subscribe, because there's plenty more to come. These car features are only just starting, and I really appreciate your time if you've made it this far in the video. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Pat. Always remember to stay driven, and we'll see you in the next one.